sound cue.
I wasn't prepared for that. You see, like Zilong, I'm of the communist persuasion. We don't dance enough. But, well, it is for me just the greatest honor to be called upon to celebrate you, because you are a truly extraordinary group, and I mean that. I've been wondering whether there was something in the water in the years that you were born, or something in the air, 1992, what was happening? And you have been cursed or blessed to live in interesting times. Most of you came to college in 2009 on the cusp of the economic crisis, and you leave college in the shadow of the Boston bombings and the Bangladesh factory fire and collapse, where over 1,000 young workers, 80% of them women between 18 and 20, your ages, were killed. Young women who produced the clothes we love to wear, from H&M to Smartwool socks. Shocking. Urged by our media and government, we have come to define terrorism as the work of individuals or groups of fanatics. What is barely talked about is state terrorism, unless it's safely located in the Middle East or Africa, would say Bashar al-Assad or Mugabe. U.S. drone strikes are not called terrorism, but fighting terrorism. And even in the wake of Bangladesh, we never speak of corporate terrorism. We now see corporations as people. Could we learn to see them as terrorists? To declare a war on corporate terrorism, a war without end. When we were gathering today, several of my colleagues said, "Are you going to be funny and tell a lot of jokes?" Well, I'm very sorry. I don't do funny. I do sort of serious, so forgive me. During the time that you have been in college, these 4 or more than 4 years, these are some of the things I've learned from you that have happened, things I've learned from your Division 2s and 3s. The U.S. prison population reached 1 in every 100 adults. The number of women in U.S. prisons, most of them mothers, nearly doubled. Since 2009, when you came here, 300 drone attacks have been authorized by President Obama, compared to 48 during the entirety of the Bush years. By next year, the Obama administration will have deported over 2 million people. 2 million people in 6 years. More in 6 years than the total number of people deported from this country between 1882 and 1997. But also, during the years in which you've been here, there has been the rebirth of a worldwide student movement in Chile, in Montreal, in Mexico, in London, Spain, and Greece, as well as revolutions in Tunisia and Egypt, and of course, Occupy Wall Street, in which some of you participated. And if you barely know about these movements or barely remember them, that is no accident, since forgetting is crucial to the maintenance of power. And so the discourse on Wall Street is that Occupy produced nothing significant. Phew. And the discourse in Washington is that Tahrir made things worse in the Middle East. And that's why it is important to remember what did happen, that there developed in the last few years all around the world, not just a belief, but a shared conviction that another world is possible, a different one, a better one. And that conviction developed because people found one another, found their own beliefs and dreams reflected in the mirror of so many others. That conviction which grew out of a collective experience and that memory of collectivity and of solidarity are what must be disparaged, mocked, and forgotten. So now I want to shift gears, but not really, to talk about the great secret of Hampshire College. It's not sex, don't worry. When you say secrets, that's what people think. And I want to do that by telling you first a story. Okay, it's the story of the last time several years ago that I took a group of students to Mexico. So we arrived in Mexico City to one of my favorite cheap hotels, and I mentioned to the group that I'd always thought this hotel would make a great setting for a film noir. All right, it's full of dark corners, it's kind of seedy, dim lights, quite mysterious. The students looked around, they contemplated the idea, and they said, "You're right. Let's do it. Let's make a film noir." So over dinner, they collectively wrote the script. It had a political plot about a hapless gringo who gets involved in the Latin American revolutionary movement, along with a complicated lesbian subplot. One went out to shoot a B-roll in the streets of Mexico City, and the others began to act in film. They produced a score for clarinet and saxophone, and drew in the desk clerks on the night shift who were utterly bored and excited to be in a movie that they thought was headed for Hollywood. They stayed up all night, the whole night, making the film, and so they were completely wiped during the next day's activities. Well, this experience made me at least somewhat sympathetic to those students who come to my classes barely able to keep their eyes open. Perhaps now I think they were up all night making a film, or reading each other's short stories, or collaborating on a play, or rehamping the barn, or queer world making. And so that is what I think is the secret of Hampshire. The incredible synergy that occurs here between students, faculty, and staff, but above all among students. And this is what I've come to think of as a kind of creative interdependence. Now this contradicts the official story that Hampshire is all about individuals and independence. Here you create your own education. There are 300 majors for 300 students. But what this story makes invisible is all the support and collaboration that make your individual projects and creativity possible. The support from your families, from the faculty and staff, but above all, I think the collaboration and solidarity with one another. That is the creative interdependence that is the secret of Hampshire. And if Hampshire remains a countercultural institution, it is because we counter a culture that insists that your moral worth is to be measured by your ability to provide for your own needs and service your own ambitions. That you are wholly responsible for yourself, and we are not responsible for one another. What we have nurtured here is something different, and we hope that this is the legacy that you will take with you. The memory, the longing, and the desire to create and recreate contexts of creative interdependence, of collaboration, and of solidarity. Well, before I conclude, I want to welcome you all, as Kim did, to the Hampshire family. Perhaps we should say to the Hampshire collective of students, alumni, parents, and friends, and tell you that besides contributing, and I cannot say enough how important it is, if we want to maintain and expand access to a counter-cultural institution, that you who have been nurtured here must support it. As you may have heard, corporate and government donations are not flowing our way. And we must expand access because we believe, I think we do, that a Hampshire education should not depend on your family's means or your citizenship status. Become part of the Hampshire Collective, and we invite you to participate in one of our newly inaugurated Alumni, Family, and Friends trips, which began last January with 2 trips to Cuba. Now, I must tell you how nervous Jackie Hayden, Carol Bengelsdorf, and I were as we launched these trips and looked at one another and said, we're not tour guides, we're professors, and who the hell is going to come on these trips, and what are they going to be like? I mean, maybe this is a terrible mistake. But it turned out it was a wonderful experience for all of us because, first and foremost, it was a Hampshire trip with Hampshire people, and that made it very special. So, but before you can become alumni and participate, you must graduate. I raised my, not exactly a glass of champagne, but a Hampshire mug. To celebrate the Hampshire class. Now, we can't say the class of 2013, because by Hampshire's peculiar dating system, you are marked by the year you entered, which seems to imply no certainty or expectation of how long it will take to get out. And so, to the class of 2009, 2008, 2007, etc.,